these four that I have mentioned, their primary focus is on Black businesses and other diverse business ownership. Moving on, we talked about the fact that a large number of Alabama's Black firms are in slow growth or stagnant industries. When we look at the census data, we find that there are more than 10,000 Black firms are either in administrative or service-based industries. So they're not in the high growth areas. This year, the Alabama Development Office has looked at what are some of the high growth areas, and this is really some of the areas that our Black firms need to look at and to consider being in those arenas. They include aerospace industry. We've got a lot of manufacturing going on there, particularly in the Huntsville area, and also down in and around Enterprise. We see a tremendous amount of automotive manufacturing. In fact, Alabama ranks in the top 10 in automotive manufacturing with the Mercedes plant in the Tuscaloosa area, the Toyota plant up in Huntsville, and the Hyundai plant over in Montgomery. And also we have, even though it's based in Georgia, it does have some impact on Alabama because it's so close to the border. Over in West Point, we have the Kia plant. So automotive manufacturing and the firms that get into that are very important here in Alabama. That would be another arena where we see, unfortunately, limited participation by Black firms. And then we have the biotech or life science area, and that's an area that's been is on the rise here in both Huntsville and Birmingham. And we see entities such as Hudson Alpha Institute in the Huntsville area, and the technology incubator down in the Birmingham area. So that's going to be a growing area over time. That's another area where we see that Black businesses are not really major participants. We also have a lot of excuse me, energy related activity. That's another growth area. We see that going on down on the coast and down in the Mobile area. Not a lot of participation again by our Black firms, and transportation and technology. The Birmingham area is in the process of developing a tremendous intermodal center, and we've had limited participation on that in that area as well. So these are just some of the areas that have been identified as high growth, explosive areas, and we've got to get more of our Black-owned firms into some of these areas and away from some of the traditional things. Now, as we move on, it's noted that Entrepreneur magazine came out and projected some of the biggest trends in business for 2013. So one of the things that we look at is how can we get more of the Black firms in position to take advantage of some of these opportunities and away from some of the non-traditional aspects and moving on into the high growth. So we're going to talk about a few of these that I think Black firms can position themselves in. One is, of course, digital health care, and nearly $1 billion has been invested in digital startups in the last year, and that's going to be a growing area, and it's projected that this market will be around at the $5.7 billion point by 2015. So that's an area a lot of firms are developing applications to help in the medical career medical field. We've been seeing a lot of focus on this because we've got a lot of our baby boomers that are going to be much older and will need health-related assistance. So this is a tremendous area to look at, and one that we certainly would encourage would-be entrepreneurs and business owners to consider. Another area that Entrepreneur Magazine points out that we can expect tremendous growth is data management, analysis, and storage. With the amount of data that's being collected in the medical, government, and financial arenas, we see a tremendous need for data management, analysis, and storage. Venture capital firms have invested $2.5 billion in this particular field in 2011. This is an area that potentially represents a $300 to $500 billion in wealth creation going forward. So it's definitely an area that one would need to pay close attention to. Another area that we see some movement by black firms in is our personal care products. So anything with skin enhancing or anti-aging properties is going to be a growth area, and that area is predicted to be a $7.4 billion market going forward. And last but not least, we've got our energy enhancing drink and product market. That's an $8 billion industry, and it's fueled by young consumers. So, we know that young consumers are buying product like our energy drinks, and that particular market is projected to grow by 9% from 2010 to 2015. So these are just some areas that I think with the help of our universities and developing some of our entrepreneurs going forward, and some of our existing entrepreneurs who will look at some of the trends and consider maybe shifting what they're currently doing or enhancing, broadening what they're currently doing, and tackling some of these areas may want to look at. Now we're going to move on and talk about the historic underutilization of black businesses at state and local government levels. Now, this has been ongoing. Unfortunately, Alabama is one of about 20 states that have no programs for inclusion of diverse businesses within their state bid laws. So when you have that, it's not surprising that we see such low numbers in terms of black firms getting government contracts at state and local levels. Let's take the Alabama Department of Transportation, for example. Black firms typically have averaged around 1% of the hundreds of billions of dollars in contracts awarded by the Alabama Department of Transportation annually. That's around 1% in hundreds of billions. We looked at a report that was a mid-year report that showed that where the Alabama Department of Transportation had done about $500 million in contracts awards, and black firms accounted for about 1.2% of those contract awards. So with Hispanic firms, they were even lower. They were only around 0.3, and women-owned business, and here we're talking about primarily white females, they were at around 6.6%. So you can see that when black firms are not making a lot of headway in that range, even though we have programs like our ALDOT's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise program that has been around for well over 20 years. Still, we're not making much headway. So at the government levels, there's got to be an effort to really improve the outreach programs. We see that when you look at the number of black businesses here within our state, there's a very low percentage that have signed up to be on vendors for ALDOT. So, we've got to get into a position where some of the best practices in supplier diversity have been applied by our state and our local governments here in our home state. And one of the key things is the number one thing when you look at the best practices in supplier diversity is that you've got to have, it starts at the top, so you've got to have advocacy to utilize the firms, whether it comes from the governor, or if you're going to a city, a mayor in that city. You've got to, if you don't have that, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So we've got to have that advocacy, and it's got to start at the top. Moving on, looking at another issue, we talked about the fact that black firms typically have limited access to information and tools to grow their businesses. Some of the potential things that we can do to improve that situation is, one, we can encourage the black firms in particular to participate in organizations that track and promote their utilization, such as the Alabama State Black Chamber of Commerce or the South Region's Minority Supplier Development Council. These are organizations that look at the numbers and report on some of those numbers in terms of utilization of black businesses. And also, they share information about what's going on with the businesses, with others as well. And they track different bids, so they provide a venue as well as the standard websites of the organizations that are offering these procurement opportunities, so you can get information from dual sources there. So we need the black firms to also look at making sure that they're on these lists and that they're monitoring the different opportunities as they come about. And another thing is that we've got to see the firms do more networking with each other, exchanging information, sharing thoughts and ideas about what's going on, information on opportunities and that thing. All these things are going to be helpful if we're going to improve our access to information and have the tools that we need to grow our businesses. Lastly, and perhaps a very important thing is that we talked about the lack of advocacy for black firms. Now, if you look at the business community, generally all entities that have someone that advocate on their behalf, whether it's the general contractors, they have the Alabama Builders and Contractors Association, or restaurants that may have Alabama Restaurant Association, those folks in retail, they have the Alabama Retail Association. Everybody has somebody that is an advocate for them, who lobbies on their behalf, if you will. Black firms tend not to be major participants in these groups, as their needs are often not fully met, or they may face issues that are unique to their businesses. Excuse me. So some of their options might include, again, participating in organizations that track and promote their utilization, such as the Alabama State Black Chamber of Commerce or the South Region's Minority Supplier Development Council. Now, some of our traditional chambers, they do have what they call Minority Business Council, but as we've shown when we went back and looked at the numbers, you really can't, lump all groups into this Minority category, because when we looked at the revenue, we saw that there were some wide disparities if I was an Asian-owned business versus a black business. We're talking well over $200,000 in average revenue disparity. So that indicates to us that, you know, you just can't lump everybody into this minority category and think one size fits all. So we need to look at, particularly with our black firms and participating in the group, somebody that's going to be an advocate for them. And additionally, it's a good thing to visit with state and local officials, both state down in Montgomery or with your local delegations when they're down in sessions, and our local officials, and let them know your concerns. These are things that are helpful. You got to have a voice, and you've got to use that voice. So if you're not a part of any of the associations that we mentioned, then you may consider collecting a group of business people and going and talking with the various officials. Now, in closing, you know, we still know that black firms often face obstacles that others do not. You know, if anyone wants to deny that, what we would tell you is to just look at the data. The data reflects that there are some differences, there are some reasons, so there are some things that are going on. The data reflects, and I'm talking about the census data, reflects some disparities. So we know that there's some obstacles for black business owners and entrepreneurs. However, the entrepreneurial spirit in that business community remains strong. You need to only look at the tremendous growth that we've seen in our state, with black businesses growing and being the highest, fastest growing sector in the state, growing by some 98%, as shown in the current data. So the key for black firms is to read the situations, read and understand whatever the situation or issue is, and to be able to react to the opportunities using a sound plan. Because in every instance, there's going to be some opportunity. With every obstacle, there's some opportunity as a result of that particular obstacle. And black businesses in the state of Alabama must plan to overcome these obstacles and begin to work together more in the future so that more of the businesses may achieve a higher level of success. Thank you.